Hi, this is Tracy Bevington. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and the owner and founder of a group psychotherapy practice called Pacific Marriage and Family Therapy Network. Today's Facebook Live, I'm going to be discussing 4 things that people don't talk about that make parenting really hard. If you're joining us today for the first time, please leave in the comments who you are and where you're joining us from. That would be great. If you have any questions or comments as I'm discussing, please leave them in the comment section and I will get back to you as soon as I can. I may even have time at the end of the segment to discuss questions. It kind of depends on how much time is left. If you're interested in joining our newsletter or you'd like to contact us for any reason, you'll see links at the top of the page. Excuse me. All right, so I'm going to get started. 4 things that make parenting really hard that people don't talk about. I remember when I was pregnant and going to become a parent, everyone had a whole bunch of advice for me. Oh, you should use this kind of diaper. Oh, you should use this kind of formula. You should do daycare. You should not do daycare. You need to get on a preschool list, like as soon as they're born. They need to go to Harvard Westlake or some kind of major private school, or, oh, don't put them in, LAUSD. That's just terrible. So tons of people have advice, but I don't ever remember anyone telling me about the hard parts of parenting, which are, as far as I'm concerned and what I see in my clients, these 4 things are watching your child struggle, seeing them unhappy or not in like physical pain necessarily, but in pain. Disciplining your child and then hearing those fateful words, I hate you. Third, accepting that your child might not be the child that you had hoped for or that you dreamed about or that you wanted. And the 4th thing is facing judgment or shame about how your child may be behaving. Maybe it's the kind of grades they're getting, something that your child's doing that brings shame or discomfort. Now, if someone told me about those things, I think I would have initially said, oh, that's just silly. Those things, how can that make parenting hard? Once you are a parent, you realize that those 4 things are really significant and important. So the first one I want to talk about is watching your child suffer, struggle, or be unhappy. I remember seeing my infant babies and hearing them cry or seeing them unhappy would literally hurt my heart. Like, it was so hard to see my child unhappy. Then as my son, we'll just go with my first son, my oldest son starts trying to walk or crawl, or he falls over, or he is having trouble reaching something, my instinct is, oh my gosh, I need to help him. I need to make sure he's okay. It's like the moms at the park. I tried not to be this mom, but I was sometimes. And everyone's been there and have seen it, where your kid is going up on the slide or climbing up on the structure, and you're just like, oh my gosh, is he going to be okay? Is he going to fall down? So it's innate with us to be protective. However, where is the line between being protective and being overprotective? The truth is that no one in the whole world, in all of the time of history, has ever been 100% happy and satisfied for long periods of time. You may have moments, but it's just not how we're supposed to be. 100% happy, 100% without some kind of struggle. So when our children are struggling, the best thing you can do for them is allow them to struggle. Now, here's another thing. When you allow them to struggle, do you allow them to struggle a lot? At what point do you intervene? When is allowing them to struggle too much going to be a bad thing? This all kind of comes back to too much of anything is a bad thing. So you want to allow your child to struggle or be unhappy because that's how they learn. People learn from making mistakes. People learn from having that discomfort of failure or that discomfort of struggle. When things come very easy, we're not really learning. We're just accepting and going along with it. So learning comes from struggle. So we want our kids to struggle. We need to try to be more comfortable allowing that struggle. And we also don't want the struggle to go on so long that our kids get frustrated and become damaged. Sometimes kids feel like nobody in the world is there to help them. They have to solve every single problem on their own. That's also not the greatest. So finding that balance between being okay, seeing them struggle, and helping them, we need to find that sweet spot. And sometimes it depends on the kid. Some kids have more resilience. Some kids don't. Some kids are a little more sensitive and other kids are not. So understanding what kind of kid you have will help you decide where is that sweet spot? Where's that spot where you are helping, but also allowing them to struggle a little bit? So watching your kids struggle or be unhappy, it's a big parenting challenge. The second thing I want to discuss is establishing discipline, or more specifically, hearing the "I hate you." That is just heartbreaking. Any parent that, especially the first time you hear it, hears "I hate you" from their child and doesn't just have a heartbreak or some kind of a feeling of failure or some kind of just awful, terrible reaction, is probably not being honest. It's not a good thing to hear "I hate you." It's a very strong word, and it's really hurtful considering all of the work as parents that we put into raising our kids. So why does it happen? Some of the best kids out there end up blurting out "I hate you." Well, some of it's hormonal. Our kids are, as they get into their preteens, the hormones are getting all activated much earlier in life than previously. So, you get somebody that's like 12, definitely 13, hormones are going. Sometimes they get impulsive, they get impatient, they get really frustrated quickly. And that's when something like "I hate you" comes out. The "I hate you" is not typically like a "I hate you," even if they're saying it like that, like "I hate you." Oftentimes it's coming from a pattern of allowed disrespect. So if we're allowing our children to disrespect us kind of in these small ways as they're growing older, then for them to blurt out "I hate you" comes a little bit easier. Now, that doesn't mean that it's all, the parent's fault or whatever. Just be mindful of, as you have younger kids, that "I hate you" is coming. And if the more respect that you can develop between you and your child, the less likely that you're going to hear "I hate you," or the easier it is going to be for you to discuss it. Sometimes saying "I hate you" is because the kids just don't feel like they're being heard. And the only time that they get heard is when they get really loud and they get really big and they make big statements. What's a bigger statement than, I hate you? So trying to prepare yourself for this kind of pushback is also part of a kid's development and growing up, especially as an adolescent, when they're trying to figure out, am I an adult? Am I still a kid? I sometimes feel like a kid, but I want to be an adult, and I'm kind of adult because I feel like it and I have more responsibility, but I'm kind of not. So they're really trapped in between these two very different worlds. So sometimes they get a lot of strength and a lot of adultness, I know that's not a word, by saying something like, I hate you. So I hate you doesn't necessarily mean I hate you. I think that's really good for everyone to know, to prepare them for when it happens, because it will almost always happen. So far, I've discussed 2 of the 4 topics that people never talk about that make parenting really hard. We've discussed watching your child struggle or be unhappy, and we've also discussed, I guess we'll call it like establishing discipline or getting ready to hear the I hate you. If you're just joining us now, I'm Tracy Bevington, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and the owner and founder of a group psychotherapy practice called Pacific Marriage and Family Therapy Network. We have 3 locations and 15 clinicians available to help in Manhattan Beach, Sherman Oaks, and Santa Monica. If you are joining us and you have any questions, please leave your questions in the comments and I'll do my best to get back to them. If you're joining us for the first time, if you'd like to leave a comment and let me know who you are and where you're joining us from, that would be great. If you would like to join our newsletter or be in contact with us, you'll see links at the top of the page. So now the third thing I want to talk about is the difficulty accepting the child that you have. So I know when I was a new mom or when I was pregnant, I had all these ideas about, oh, this is what my son's going to be like, or, oh, this is how he's going to do this and that. I'm going to enroll him in these things and we're going to do this together and this and da 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 da. And then my son came out and he was not exactly what I expected. He didn't want a nurse. He was a little bit stubborn. He had a great personality and a beautiful smile, and people loved him. He was super cute. Then as he got older, I thought, because I did a lot of sports as a kid, I thought, oh, my kid's going to play soccer. I'm going to enroll him in this. We're going to do that. And he just wasn't having it. He is not into sports. He is not athletic, and he is not super coordinated. So it took some time for me to accept the fact that, whoa, this is not what I expected. So at that point, I had a choice. I could push my kid to be what I want him to be. Or I can kind of step back and say, well, what kind of kid do I have? This is especially hard when you find out that your child is atypical, meaning maybe they have a diagnosis of ADHD. Maybe they're on the autism spectrum. Maybe they have dyslexia. Maybe there's depression or anxiety or something going on. Maybe you thought they were going to be musically inclined and they're just not. No matter how hard they try, they're just not interested or just don't have the talent for it. Same thing with like math. Maybe you thought, wow, my kid's going to be really good at math. I'm going to make sure of that. And for some reason, it's just not clicking. So it's important to always be mindful of the kid that you do have and how important the things that you expected to have are to you and your family. I don't know, maybe you have a family of professional athletes, and it's very important to maintain that legacy of athletics and that kind of level of elite athletics. And maybe if your child is not like super into it, maybe after some time they end up getting super into it. I don't know, but you have to decide what's important and why. And if it's worth trying to, I say, force your child to do what you want them to do instead of allowing them to do what they want. It can be quite challenging, especially when you don't adjust your expectations. If you continue to have this expectation, but then kind of tell yourself, well, I guess it's okay, but you still have the expectation, you're going to continue to be disappointed, frustrated, all kinds of things. There's going to be a lot of arguing. It's going to bring a lot of disharmony into your family. So take a look at the kid that you have and think about accepting that child for who they are and whether or not you need to change what's going on there or push for something that maybe they don't want. Finally, I want to talk about facing judgment or shame from others about things that your child may be doing. I think this is probably worst when you're a first-time parent and your kids are really small. For some reason, when you go to like Mommy and Me, or you go to the park, or you're doing anything, all anybody talks about is, oh, what milestones have your kids met yet? Is your child walking? My kid walked at 6 months. Mine didn't. My kid could read at a first grade level. My kid knows this many sight words. There's so much like competition out there that it's really, really tough to have a child that is maybe not performing as well as some of these other kids, which I'm not even sure I believe they're performing like their parents say they are, but whatever. As the child gets older, it's also hard when you have a child that maybe acts out or is not so consistent in doing their homework or gets into a little bit of trouble. Facing judgment or shame from others is really hard because you cannot control another person, especially as your kids get older. You cannot control them. As they get older, they get bigger, they have more resources available to them, meaning friends or cars or bikes and money. You can't force them to do things. So being okay with accepting judgment or shame is something that we have to get used to. And it's really, really hard. Now, as your kid gets older, hopefully you've started developing a relationship where they're not making bad choices and they're not, ditching school and smoking weed and selling drugs or whatever. Because that's like legitimate shame. When our child is doing something that is against moral values, against cultural values, against the law, right? There should be some shame there. I'm talking about the shame where maybe your kid wants to, maybe you have a boy and he wants to wear a pink tutu out to the park or to the store. Are you okay with that? For some people, that's incredibly difficult. So kind of related to what we talked about just a minute ago, accepting the child that you have and accepting that sometimes accepting the child you have means that other people are not going to understand or they're not going to get it. And so they might judge. You might feel shame. You have to decide if that shame is reasonable or not reasonable. And if you want to support your child in their choices or you want to kind of mainstream them. Either way is fine. You get to make that choice as a parent. But part of it is deciding how much or at what point judgment and shame is affecting you, and that's why you're parenting in this way, or is it the judgment and shame that your child is feeling? Because your child might not be feeling any judgment or shame at all for going to Target in a pink tutu as a little boy. So then it's yours, and you have to decide if that's worth it or not. Everyone's gotten the look at one point or another. At the park, at the grocery store, at Target, maybe your kid's having a meltdown because they didn't get a nap. I don't know what it is, but everyone's gotten the look. And in everyone's mind is something like, what's wrong with you? That's what we think the other people are thinking when you're getting the look. So what can you do to help yourself through those situations when you're feeling shame, when you feel embarrassed, when you feel judged? You have to figure out how you want to do that. Have faith in yourself. Part of it is understanding that you know your kid and you know what's best for them. You know, and they don't. You may be having a bad day and you just don't have enough energy in the tank to really parent the way that you like to or that you're used to. And that happens sometimes. Not everyone is perfect. Consider all the things that you do well and how no one ever sees that, or no one ever comments, no one ever notices that. Shame is not always a bad thing. Shame keeps us on track. It makes us think about and consider what we're doing and if we want to continue doing it or not. And sometimes our shame can be managed because we're an adult for the sake of our kids. So coping in general, right? If you decide, okay, I can face shame and I can face judgment for the sake of my kid. How do we do that? Get support from friends and family, from professionals. It's not easy to manage all of these things. Watching your kids struggle or be unhappy, hearing I hate you, accepting the child that you have is not the child that you've always wanted, and facing judgment and shame. Those are really hard things. Back in the day, parents would just discipline and make their kids, to the best of their ability, behave the way that they wanted. That just doesn't work like it used to. So you need support to help you decide how you want to maneuver through all this stuff. What you could do to calm your nervous system so you're not freaking out and you can allow your child to be the person that they are. Stay mindful of your imperfection and the imperfection of your child. And be a role model. Model the acceptance of imperfection. Model tolerance, appropriate tolerance. Model proper communication, appropriate communication. Create appropriate expectations and try hard to remind yourself of those expectations. And don't be afraid to give tough love. Tough love is the best kind of love you can give. At the moment, it seems really hard and it might be painful, but in the long run, it's going to teach you and your kids how to be a better person and a better adult. So, for today's Facebook Live, I've discussed 4 things that no one ever talks about that makes parenting hard. Watching your child struggle, hearing I hate you, accepting your child for who they are, and being okay facing judgment and shame. If you have any questions or you would like to discuss any of these topics further, please reach out through the Contact Us link at the top of the page. Please feel free to join our newsletter. My name again is Tracy Bevington, and I hope you enjoyed this segment of Facebook Live. I do Facebook Live presentations every Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific. If there are any topics that you have interest in hearing about, please leave those in the comments. I'm happy to try to address whatever comes up. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next week.